Good afternoon, Dallas Stars hockey fans. This is Jeff with the Dallas Stars Hockey Minute. Um, Welcome back, Glenn Gensel. I don't remember much of his tenure before, but as I've done the research, we were definitely in probably the most dire straight situation back in 2012. The league owned us. There was even talk about moving the team, and then great ownership came in, and Jim Neal had to make a decision, and he fired him. However, 12 years later, the experience is there. And think about it. He was the guy that beat us with Edmonton. He was the guy that was running that power play. There's so much awesome stuff going on here that after 12 years of experience, he gets to come back here. And this is a redemption story. The one thing that I loved in the press conference today was, a lot of people were asking that question, is it Stanley Cup or bust? And I really enjoyed the answer that both of them provided, that this is a league of 7 or 8 teams that possibly could win the Stanley Cup, and we're one of them. That's what Coach Gensel said. And the thing is, it's a tough league, and I'm glad that they didn't put like all the marbles in one basket and put that kind of pressure out there. I think that is way better than saying it's all or nothing. Considering a league that is full of extraordinary talent, and this being, I still think, the hardest championship to win in sports. I'm excited. It's almost like you can say that little 2 year tenure that he had as a head coach, as a young guy that didn't have a lot of experience, doesn't even exist. He gets to come in here, and he's got depth. He's got an incredible team to work with. He gets to work with Jamie Benn again. And one of the things he talked about in the press conference that I didn't know, that he coached him in Austin as well. So he's actually come up with Jamie Benn. So there's a relationship between your head coach and your captain that we didn't have before, if you think about it, with DeBoer. DeBoer was happy to have Jamie, but that relationship that Gensel and DeBoer and that Jamie Benn have, you can see it's going to be a lot more on point. And you definitely want your captain and your head coach to be um, friends. Not necessarily friends, but you want the respect to be there. And I'm sure they'll butt heads sometimes. But the one thing that came from this press conference that he talked about was physicality, that we need to be a more physical team. I loved how he put it. It's like hand to hand combat when it comes to playoffs. And the thing I thought was interesting, he said that it's got to be done throughout the year. 1 degree here, 1 degree here, 1 degree here. He talked about how it's one of those things you just can't turn off and turn on in the playoffs. I thought that was an interesting comment when everyone was talking about what can you do different, what can you do better. And I respected the fact that he said that he doesn't want to rock the boat completely because he knows what kind of team we have. We have an incredible hockey team. We had over 100 points last year. You know, you come in, you assess the situations, you look at the things you can work on. And I was really impressed with when he said, he wanted to work on physicality, because that was something that I believe every one of us, friends friends that I know, every hockey fan that I know, has been talking about how when the playoffs came, we were pretty soft. I mean, you got to do it in the right way. Stay out of the box. There's going to be nasty moments in the playoffs, and you got to have that too. But there's got to be a balance of both, because there was times, even a couple years ago, when we played Vegas in the conference final, and Jamie Benn got that penalty against Mark Stone, and Stone, was out of the game, and it was nasty, and everyone in the league was talking about what a dirty player Jamie Benn is, and you're definitely going to have to learn how to do it in a way that isn't going to give you that backlash. But trust me, that was one thing Edmonton did well. They were nasty at times. They were in your face nasty at times. And I think there were times they got away with stuff because they could. And we kind of have to learn how to play that game just a little bit more. I think that might be very well the next thing we need. And with a healthy roster, we could very well get over the top. But I appreciated that, you know, as coaches and as the GM said, we always want to win a Stanley Cup. Um, the wins and the losses aren't great, but I'm just glad they didn't put everything in one basket and pushed, that narrative, because they did that in Edmonton last year, and I think maybe that might have been the pressure point that, still made it difficult for people to continue to do well. No matter what, they're athletes, but they're still human beings. There's still a mentality of you got to know how to have a little mental health at times. Anyway, there's so much talent here. I'm really glad we brought Radek Fatsa back. I mean, there's a lot of people that think that was a bad move, but there's so many little things that he does that I love. He wins face-offs. He's a great penalty killer. Stuff like that isn't always going to be on the stat sheet. You know, it's not always about goals and points. It's about the way you play the game. And I still think Radek Fatsa plays the game right, and I'm really happy that we got to bring him back. He's a Dallas Star. It was sad that he went away for a while, but him and Esa Lindell play very well together, and it's exciting. I think the press conference said a lot about how we're ready for the next chapter. Look, I really want to win a Stanley Cup. I want to see it happen. I think that our power play is going to get so much better. Everyone talks about the Neil Armstrong, the assistant coach now that's going to be running the power play. Apparently, he was the coach of the Texas Stars last year, and I watched a couple of those games online, and he had a hell of a power play. I mean, I think he's going to bring a lot of physicality and a lot of pucks to the net for that. Anyway, this is Jeff with the Dallas Stars Hockey Minute. I really think this is going to be awesome. I'm looking forward to next season. I'm jonesing right now. I feel like a drug addict without my hockey. I got 3 months to wait, and I hate it. But go Stars.